TCU offensive guard Steve AVILA has a wide lower body and good upper body strength that allows him to absorb contact at the point of attack. Lateral agility and change of direction are a bit of a concern, so he projects more to a power gap blocking scheme. He ran the 40-yard dash in 5.21 seconds with a 1.86 seconds 10-yard split at the NFL Combine. AVILA is a highly competitive lineman that forklifts and drives defenders back in the run game through a sturdy base. He measured 33-inch arms at the NFL Combine, and that is more than enough to dictate movements at the point of attack. AVILA projects as a steady, long-term starter in the NFL, and we compare him to former Seahawks offensive guard James Carpenter.
Tennessee's Byron Young, very, very experienced. A leader through all of the turmoil. There's been a lot of turmoil at Tennessee over the years as they changed into the Josh Heupel era. First step, absolute monster. Has a quickness like a deer. However, when you look at him, run defense, not necessarily there. Kind of a one-trick pony when you look at edge threat. Run defense, a little bit of a problem. Needs to get some power into his game. Shaq Barrett's a guy that I think really relates to Byron Young. Not necessarily as polished when he got to the NFL level. A year, couple years, becomes a star. Young's going to need that kind of coaching. He's going to have that kind of track if he dedicates himself at the next level.
Kobe Turner, the defensive lineman out of Wake, great story coming into this draft. Started out his college career as a walk-on, an FCS walk-on for that matter. His parents told him he had 1 year to get a scholarship. What does he do? He just becomes an All-American, transfers to Wake Forest, and here he is in the NFL draft. High character guy, comes in at 6'2", 288. I think you'd like to see a little more size on him, but he's got a lot of speed and athleticism coming up and down that line of scrimmage. When you look at him, a defensive lineman, I think he's about the 20th best defensive lineman coming into this draft. Kind of reminds you of Larry Ogunjobi, the 2017 draft. I think he'll have a successful career. He's just going to have to get in the right system in the NFL with the right coordinator and a great deal of patience.
While everyone's talking about the big four quarterbacks that are going to go off in the top 10 of the draft, everyone seems to have forgotten yet again about the former walk-on Stetson Bennett, who just won back-to-back championships with the Georgia Bulldogs. And one thing I think he did, he's been playing himself up those draft charts. If you watch the tape, especially this last season when he made a bunch of plays, not only with his arm, but his legs as well, I think he's the type of player that, given the opportunity, could come in and thrive at the next level. My NFL comp for him, another guy who came out, little chip on his shoulder, Baker Mayfield. Now, Baker went #1 overall. There's no chance Stetson Bennett goes there, but I could see him ride that chip on the shoulder. There's not many guys you would want to bet against, and I wouldn't bet against Stetson Bennett making a team and possibly playing his way into some playing time within the first few years of his NFL career.
Nick Hampton, a 6'2", 236-pound edge rusher out of Appalachian State of the Sun Belt Conference, does a great job, in my opinion, in converting speed to power as an edge rusher. He can really rush and explode into an offensive lineman's chest and really walk him back into the pocket. He gets great ball get off every time, which helps him get that burst, and does an excellent job with his first step. He has that top-notch acceleration to really threaten the edge. Now, he's sort of one-dimensional as a rusher, and it's usually just speed to power in that regard. Sort of something he's going to have to work on moving forward. Kind of reminds me a lot of Alex Highsmith of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Warren McClendon Jr., tackle out of Georgia, has some Bobby Evans in this game. At 6'4", 306, and with 34-inch arms, McClendon certainly looks the part. He's not as consistent as Jamari Sawyer coming out, his former teammate from Georgia, even though Sawyer was undervalued when he lasted until the 6th round. That said, McClendon flashed during the 2022 season, showing off both his athleticism and his mobility. But it's the lack of size that will show up on tape. He can struggle to anchor against bigger defensive ends, and while his arms are plenty long enough, NFL teams will have discussions about whether his future is inside at guard. He has a frame to add 10 or 15 pounds, but there's also the line of thinking that his best football is ahead of him, especially if he's lined up inside at the next level.
Davis Allen is an incredibly physically gifted tight end coming out of Clemson. At 6'6", 245 pounds, he was able to bring back that inside threat that was missing from the passing game. And also, he was especially helpful when he had a couple of quarterbacks who were throwing the ball too high, because even Davis Allen could go up there and bring that thing down. He was fantastic in the red zone. He's big enough that he can put a defender on his back and box him out. And those are the two places where I think Davis Allen is going to be very interesting moving forward at the NFL, because whether it's taking advantage of the open space over the middle or being able to get those red zone looks when the outside receivers are covered, Allen has shown that ability to box out and go up and get it. And that's why we have Allen comped to Harrison Bryant of the Cleveland Browns. Davis Allen, physically gifted, great hands, and good in the red zone. It's a good combination for an NFL tight end.
Puka Nacua, wide receiver out of BYU, has a lot of Darrell Jackson in his game. Nacua is a Washington transfer whom the BYU coach called one of the best players in college football during the 2022 season. At 6'1", 206, Nacua has prototypical NFL size, and he has the juice to back up the eyeball test. He's a willing blocker on the edge and has legit yards after catch potential, thanks in part to his plus contact balance that allows him to bounce off tackles. And while he's not particularly twitchy at the top of routes when it comes to creating separation, he is physical, and that, along with good hands and a big catch radius, make him a popular target. He also flashes the ability to take quick screens and turn what look like short gains into chunk plays. He'll need to refine his route running to the next level, and the lack of deep speed may mean he's more possession receiver than home run threat.
Travius Hodges-Tomlinson out of TCU at 5'8", 185 pounds is a short player, but he's not small because he's well put together. He's an explosive athlete and reminds me a lot of Quandre Diggs and what he can do out there on the football field. When you look at Hodges-Tomlinson, he's an explosive, fluid athlete in all directions. He can click and close and drive on the football. He's able to challenge at the top of the route and also above the rim, but that lack of length or height in that situation tends to put him in a disadvantage versus these bigger physical wide receivers. And because of that, you may find him getting kicked inside as a slot corner as opposed to holding his own out on a perimeter. He can't change his height, but he can definitely challenge the football, and that's an area that's going to give him a lot of opportunities to play on the outside at the professional level.
O'Shawn Mathis, defensive end / linebacker out of Nebraska, is a long linear athlete with very good quickness and speed, but he needs to improve his play strength. When you watch him versus the run, he can shed and separate and get off tight ends, but when a big offensive tackle gets on him, he struggles to disengage and find the ball. He does play hard and will chase down from the backside. As a pass rusher, when he pins his ears back, and he doesn't do that all the time, he shows first step quickness and can bend and get the edge and get to the quarterback. He did struggle versus Peter Skoronski from Northwestern, who I think is one of the best offensive tackles coming out in this year's draft. Some teams are going to project him to guard, but either way, he's the best offensive lineman in this year's draft. I'm going to make a pro comparison to Adewale Uganle that I drafted a few years ago when I was back in Miami.
Zach Evans, man, a 5-star coming out of high school, goes to TCU. Doesn't really work out there with Sonny Dykes. He goes to Ole Miss. A backup to true freshman Quinshon Judkins. However, he was a 1B. That speed, that burst, he's got all of that. He's a 2-down back, however. That is a problem. Pass protection, not necessarily his strength. And you go back and look at his tape, ball security. Look, we thought ball security was going to be a problem going in. It's been like that his entire career. Didn't really change during his time under Lane Kiffin and the Rebels. If you're looking at a guy where, you kind of had some of that same issues minus the ball control, it's Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne's got that spurt. He can be a home run hitter, just like Zach Evans. Zach's going to need some polish, though, to become that good that soon at the NFL level.
Jason Taylor II, safety out of Oklahoma State. He's a 2-year starter for the Cowboys and a big-time playmaker in the secondary over the course of his career in Stillwater. He plays like a linebacker when in the box, but he's also capable of tracking the deep balls as well. Had 6 interceptions just this past year. He does need to improve his coverage ability and open field tackling, but he reminds me of a prospect of DESHON Elliott, the safety for the Miami Dolphins.
Quindell Johnson, safety out of Memphis, he has a lot of Kirby Joseph in his game. For some reason, he didn't get a combine invite, but his college tape tells a different story. He had 4 interceptions, 4 pass breakups, and 2 forced fumbles during the 2022 season, and he showed the ability to both patrol center field as a deep safety and play closer to the line of scrimmage in run support. He'll need to clean up some missed tackles, but it would be a surprise and a mistake by NFL teams if he wasn't drafted. Johnson comes downhill with a suddenness NFL teams covet from the deep safety position, and he can even line up in the slot and cover tight ends. But he'll struggle to stay in phase with faster wide receivers on those vertical looks. And that lack of deep speed shows up on tape. But here's the thing, if you're looking for a hard-hitting safety who's not afraid to mix it up near the line of scrimmage, Johnson is your guy all day long. RASHAD Torrence II, safety out of Florida, reminds me of Rontez Miles. Torrence is a smart, instinctive, middle-of-the-field player who shows both coverage ability and a willingness to come downhill and blow up a running play. At 6 feet, 193, he's slightly undersized given the way he throws his body around, so durability could be a concern. Also worth noting, he ran a 4.72 40 at the Combine and at his Pro Day. And while that's not an out-and-out deal breaker, it's something that will be discussed in all 32 draft rooms because those numbers at that position make you a liability in coverage. That said, it's all the more impressive that Torrence is regularly in the right place, in position to make a play on the ball. He takes good angles in run support and has a knack for knowing where the ball is going to be a split second before everyone else. He needs to be a little bit more consistent as a tackler, and the speed is an issue, but he's a really instinctive player.
Louisville's Tyon Evans is a player with a thick lower body build and just average top end speed. But he has good burst to get around the corner. He drives his feet and fights through contact, and despite a lack of production, he looks solid as a pass catcher, but offers little in the way of pass protection, which will limit his contributions on third down. Evans averaged a fumble per 27.33 carries last season, and the former Tennessee transfer is a low-stepping runner that is impatient, allowing his blocks to develop. He has starting qualities, but will probably serve as depth early in his career. We have compared him to former NFL running back Terrence West.
Alex Ward, long snapper out of UCF, and his comp, J.J. Jansen. Ward is a 2-time finalist for the Patrick Manley Award as the top long snapper in the country. In 2022, he was a second-team All-American and a third-team selection in 2021, and he parlayed that consistency into a Senior Bowl invite in January. After redshirting his first 2 seasons at UCF, he has been the long snapper the last 4 years for the Knights, where he has logged 4 tackles in 50 games.